Really? It's been hours.
Welcome to Duality Gamecast, sponsored by Gladiator Games.
Today's episode, Star Wars the Card Game.
Welcome to Duality Gamecast. I'm Matt.
And I'm William.
Today we're looking at Star Wars the Card Game from Fantasy Flight Games.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make a deck. Step one is decide whether or not you're going to be light side or dark side, depicted by either blue backs or red backs. In this case, you're going to be light side, and the next thing we're going to do is pick a faction. I'm picking Jedi. After you pick a faction, you're going to pick objective sets. You pick 8 per deck. Each one comes with an objective card and 5 other cards with it. After you pick your 8 sets, I pick these right here ahead of time. You take your objective cards, put them in a stack, shuffle them together, and the remaining cards get shuffled together also and make up your core deck. Then you get ready to play. Let's check it out. Alright, so each turn is broken up into 6 phases. They are balance, refresh, draw, deployment, conflict, and force. At the beginning of the balance phase, if you're the dark side player, the Death Star dial is going to move up 1. If the dark side is in control of the force, it's also going to move up an additional 1. If you're the light side player, you don't move the Death Star dial up, and if the light side is in control of the force, you get to do a point of damage on an opponent's objective. After this is the refresh step. On this, you're allowed to take 1 force token off of each objective set and card you have in play. It's important to note if you had more than 1 focus token on a card, you'll only be able to take 1 off. After the refresh step, you move to draw. On your draw step, you're allowed to take up to 1 card from your hand, discard it, and draw back up to 6. Then we move on to deployment. Deploying is pretty easy. Each card in your hand has a cost in the upper left-hand corner. See right here with Yoda, it says 3. The only restriction is because Yoda is a Jedi card, at least 1 resource must come from a Jedi source. In this case, all the sources I have out right now are Jedi, so it's not a problem. You can see right here is the resources they can produce. So if I want to get 3 resources for Yoda, I have to put a focus token on these 3, producing 3 tokens, spin them all on Yoda here. After this, we move on to conflict. So let's resolve a conflict. The first thing you do is you pick an objective set you're going to target. We'll go with the Hive of Scum and Villainy. Next is the active player. You pick all the characters you're going to attack with. We'll go with Yoda. After you've picked everybody you're going to attack with, the defending player is allowed to pick any characters they want. They'll defend with this assassin droid. Then you begin the edge battle. To do this, each player, starting with active player, take cards from their hand and put them face down. When both players consecutively pass and decide that they've played enough cards, we resolve the edge battle. We flip over the cards and count up icons. In this case, the shadow player has 1, the light side player has 4, making them the winner. When you win the edge battle, all white icons on your character activate, and now you can use them. So Yoda went from having just a tactics icon to also having an objective and a character damage icon. Since we won, we get to act first, and we'll focus Yoda to strike. The first thing he does is use his tactics icon, put a focus token on another character. Then he does a character damage, and he also does an objective damage. Then it goes on to the other side, and they're allowed to activate any of their characters. However, though, because the assassin droid's been tapped or focused down, he cannot act this round. And combat resolves and is over. And now the Force phase. In this phase, you can commit up to 3 of your characters to the Force. I'm going to go ahead and commit Yoda here. Then you move on to the Force struggle. In the Force struggle, any of your characters that are not focused add their edge icons to the struggle, and you determine who wins. In this case, the light side has 5 here with Yoda. The dark side has 2 there with that assassin droid, making light side the victor. Whichever side wins flips the token over to their side, and then you end the round.
So Star Wars the Card Game, it's a living card game. William, how's it play?
Different than most I have played before. It has a kind of asynchronous gameplay going on here. Both sides mechanically work the same. They have slightly different objectives. The dark side kind of wants to hold out, while the light side has to just get in there and make it happen. But mechanically, they're both very similar, with just a couple little thematic differences. The big thing for me in this game is the deck construction aspects of it. The fact that instead of picking individual cards, you're picking 6-card packets that you're shuffling together means that you might pick one packet just for one card in it that you like, but the rest of them are kind of not so good. Or you might pick just an overall solid objective set because you just want a higher power level in your deck. And to me, that was what really makes this game interesting is the deck construction of it. Because while it seems like, because you're only picking 8 of them, that you kind of limited down your resources, you really have to pay a lot more attention to how entire blocks of cards now interact with each other. To me, that was the interesting, fun aspect of it. What are you thinking about it?
It is unique. We've played some other living card games and, of course, deck building games, collectible card games. And this one stands out as being different. Like you said, the micro deck aspect is really interesting. When we were first hearing about this game way back, I'd heard that your units could be Star Destroyers or characters like Han Solo or droids, and they all just go into the battlefield together. And that made me really skeptical. I was like, really? You're going to have a Star Destroyer fighting Han Solo? Come on. But, it works, because this is more like, it feels more like a strategy level than a tactical level. So that totally works. I would say that I think this game has a kind of a steep learning curve.
Yes.
There's a lot of icons to keep track of. When you're playing, there's a lot of in the round tactical stuff going on because you can focus down your opponents, cause them to lose that character for the turn. If you win the edge battle, that's a huge difference from losing the edge battle. There's triggered effects and obviously different icons to track, like character damaging ones, objective damaging ones, and the ones that focus people down. There's also shields, which can protect people, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they just last for the round.
Yeah,
right?
they usually go on, and then they take basically the first time you put a focus token on them or take 1 damage, you take the shield token off instead.
And then you're also got a plan when you're using those characters for the force phase at the end of the round, whether you're going to commit people, whether you need to have cards available to commit. So it's pretty in-depth strategically.
Yes.
The rules, you bought the game, so I kind of let you deal with the rule book. Didn't seem to me, just from watching you and us learning the game, that the rule book was laid out real super well.
Well, I think what it did is some things were smart about it. I mean, they broke down stuff into small groups, and then they had bigger explanation for it later on, but they didn't directly reference the rules. Like, go to page 8 to see entirely how combat is. So you're like, oh, combat says do this. Okay. And then later on you realize, oh, wait, there's more steps, more in depth that I should have looked up to figure that out. I think that was, that's a rule book thing, but it wasn't laid out poorly that I couldn't find anything. There's just so much little nuance going on here. And each card does so many things because, like, when it gets back kind of maybe to the deck building for me, but a lot of the good cards also have a lot of edge icons on them, which are important, but not all of them are, like, it's not always an expensive card always has a ton of edge icons. So you have this interesting thing where you might build a deck and then realize that, like, oh no, I built this really awesome deck that on the board is good, but in the edge battle, like, all I have is like 1 icon things. My deck's not going to be able to actually compete in that realm. Mm-hmm. You can even build a deck that maybe doesn't even worry about the edge battle. I know that that's some divergent strategies they have. Is some decks care about winning, some decks actually care about losing. There's all sorts of different directions they go with this because there's so many levels and layers to the cards. And even I talked about a little bit in the setup part of it, but you can have different factions. Like you can have Jedi and the smugglers mix in the same deck together. There's a few objective sets that say only the Jedi or only the smugglers, which depends like which starting faction you might start with. But for me, what I keep gushing over in my mind is just the deck construction to me is really unique, and it gives us like this cool puzzle element that I haven't really seen in any other games.
For sure. It's different than what I expect from a Star Wars game. And I'm still wrestling with whether that's a positive or negative or neither. Like, it's not the pew-pew fast kind of Star Wars game. It's a thinky game, different levels, both in deck construction and in play. I'm wondering, do you think this was the right theme for this system?
I couldn't imagine what else you would put on this system. I mean, I feel like they were maybe built in tandem.
Right.
Like little things like the whole force struggle at the end. I mean, you could have that be anything, but that really does, it kind of gives you like the overarching feel of this game. This game is, as you're saying before, you're not, even though you play Luke Skywalker, it's not Luke Skywalker fighting a Star Destroyer. It's Luke Skywalker's on my side doing things, the Star Destroyer is on your side doing things, and we're not attacking, like you don't attack characters, you attack objectives. And so Luke can get involved and do something to help defend that objective from a Star Destroyer in some fashion. But to me, it has the good feel of it being like this huge, large, big story going on, and you're controlling like one aspect of it, and then people are running off and doing stuff on their own. So yeah, I think it has a very Star Warsy feel. I think it definitely has a much more cinematic feel than, I forget what the previous Star Wars card game was.
The old collectible one?
The collectible one that came around when all the new movies came out.
Oh, yeah.
And that one tried to do it with like having 3 different zones you're fighting in, but that one was just a hodgepodge of stuff. I didn't play too much of the really old collectible one. I think they were trying to do kind of the same thing there. I feel like maybe it's completely different mechanically, but in theme and feel, I feel like these two are way more in line. Again, though, it's how you can play with, like you can make a deck that's all about, the Millennium Falcon, and not even have anybody else from any of the movies in it. You can make a deck that has a bunch of no-name characters in it. They pulled in a bunch of stuff from like the expanded universe into it. And because it's a living card game, you can kind of go out and get the bits and pieces you want. So that seems neat. However, though, because it's a living card game, and depending on what area you're in, how popular it is, I can see maybe it attracted to this being, if you don't have a big group that's playing this, if it's just 2 people or something, you can be a little stagnant, unlike some of the more big games like Magic or something like that, which it's hard not to find a community of Magic players in any type of major city.
Yeah, and I don't see, so far, we don't have all the expansions, but I don't see this game being overtly multiplayer friendly. I'm sure there are rules.
I think there's the rules that lets like 3 good people, light side players, team up against 1 dark side players. It's a special expansion pack they had, which we don't have, that is supposed to set up for that. Yeah, so it doesn't have the fun of like the casual big table play.
Right. Because I know Game of Thrones was built to be so it could be multiplayer, not built to be. And what's the other big one they had? The Call of Cthulhu one I know was multiplayer friendly.
This is more lines with like what's the name of the Netrunner?
Yeah, more like Netrunner.
And it even kind of has that thing where there's a little bit of Netrunner. I think maybe is more so, but there's asynchronous gameplay. There's 2 different sides. If you're playing in tournaments, you are going to go back and forth between light and dark side decks, back and forth. And again, they mechanically work very similar. Both players can attack objective sets. The difference is that the dark side player has like inevitability. The dark side player is going to win if the light side player doesn't stop it.
So their deck building can be very different.
Yes.
All right. All right, like any good living card game, we got to evaluate the art. What do you think?
I think the art in this is great. I think that if you look at the cards, there's all these evocative scenes from the movies, and like maybe that happened, after the camera cut away in the movies, and just all these great scenes. I think the art is very nice, very high quality. I haven't seen anything in it that I looked at. I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. There's obviously they have different artists, so some are maybe not as Star Wars invoking as others, but I have no complaints about art, card layout, for how much these cards have on them and how busy they could have been. It doesn't really feel overwhelming at all. And even though this is just a card game, it does come with some components. The components are great quality chipboard. The 2 big ones are your Death Star dial and the Force Battle chit. I don't know what you call this. Never worried about wearing these things out. Run over them with a car, they're not going to take any damage. And everything's very clear for the iconography because this doesn't use the tap or bow or whatever you want to say system. A big mechanic in this game is focus, and the fact that things can be, for like Magic players, can be like doubled and triple tapped in a way. And I think that these tokens are very obvious. They look very clean. It's really easy to sell what's going on with it at all times.
Yeah. So the art is all painting, but like you said, it's all either straight out of a movie scene or real evocative of the universe. There's also a lot that is Ralph McQuarrie art, which if you're into Star Wars, he was a concept artist, the original Star Wars concept artist. So, for instance, right here, this card is called Trust Me. You can't see it, but I'll throw it up, maybe. And it is original Ralph McQuarrie art of Lando walking out on the platform to greet Han Solo in Cloud City. Very cool that they took that step. Yeah, they've got one classic Fantasy Flight dial. They like their dials, which is kind of just a convenience, really. I mean,
it could have been a die 12,
you
or
could just keep a track on dice or something, and your marker really could be something.
A double-sided card, yeah.
But it's nice. It's really nice, and the art, no complaints. The card stock is fine. Yeah, I think the production value. Oh, the icons. First time we played this game, I was angry at the icons, but I was a misassigned anger. It was just the steep learning curve of the game. And once we got over that, the iconography is actually quite clean and makes a lot of sense.
So there's only about 4 or 5 icons in the whole game. Because there's basically the unit damage icon, the objective damage icon, the tactics icon, and then the icon used to denote resources.
Right.
And so I think, yeah, when you start seeing like, oh my goodness, because they're black and white, so when you come in completely cold, you're like, oh, this guy has like 7 icons on him. What's happening? You realize, oh, there's actually only 3,
Right.
And they're going black and white back and forth to depict whether or not they activate or not in that edge battle.
Yes, overall, standard Fantasy Flight fare. They're always, high on the production quality.
Absolutely. Zwam. It's hard for me to rate this game because I don't have a big pool of players I'm playing it with. I think that if I had a big Star Wars community in my area, I would give this a love it. Because though there isn't a lot of people that I have to play with it right now, it's just basically me and Matt and whoever else can sucker into playing the game with me at the time. I'm going to give this a like it with that caveat that maybe if I had a bigger pool of players, it'd hop up to a love it.
Star Wars, the card game. This is a fun game. I enjoyed playing it with Will. Steep learning curve, and not the pew-pew Star Wars game that a lot of people are looking for. I want to get more into the deck building for sure before I fully evaluate it. And I am concerned about trying to grow my play group for this game because of that steep learning curve and because of the sort of attention deficit expectations around a sci-fi action game, because that's not what this is. But it's fun. If you're a deep living card game player, you probably would call this a love it or a buy it. I'm not that person, so I'm going to go with a like it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this Battle Royale episode. If you'd like to subscribe, click on me, and thanks to all these people for helping us out. It's one time when my dead stopping sometimes helps. Oh hello, camera, you're recording again.